The 1940s were a tumultuous time for the American automotive industry. World War II halted car production for several years, and when manufacturers resumed, some truly odd and poorly executed designs emerged. While the decade produced some iconic vehicles, there were also several that missed the mark entirely. Here are the 15 worst and silliest American cars from the 1940s, models that just couldn't get it right. The 1941 Studebaker Champion, while intended to be an affordable, practical car for the average family, ultimately fell short of making a lasting impact. Its underwhelming 80-horsepower engine was one of its most significant drawbacks, leaving it struggling to compete with the more powerful and advanced vehicles of the time. As the automotive industry evolved rapidly in the pre-war years, with manufacturers pushing boundaries in both style and performance, the Champion's modest powertrain felt like a step backward in an era of progress. At the heart of the issue was the engine's performance. Producing only 80 horsepower, the Champion's power output was considerably below that of many competing models. While it was designed to be economical, the lack of power became evident when faced with even basic driving demands, such as maintaining speed on highways or navigating inclines. In a time when families were becoming increasingly mobile, eager to explore the growing road infrastructure of the United States, the Champion's sluggish acceleration and limited top speed made it feel inadequate. It wasn't just a matter of underperformance, but a missed opportunity to meet the aspirations of a generation seeking more excitement and utility from their vehicles. In addition to its engine woes, the Champion was plagued by an overall sense of unremarkable design. Although Studebaker had a reputation for innovative styling, the Champion didn't exhibit the kind of boldness that could set it apart from the pack. Its aesthetics were conservative at a time when many car makers were beginning to embrace more streamlined and modern designs. While the Champion was functional, it lacked the visual flair that could have helped it stand out on the road. For many buyers, the car simply blended into the background, neither visually arresting nor particularly engaging to drive. The affordability of the Studebaker Champion was one of its few redeeming qualities, making it an attractive option for budget-conscious families. However, the trade-off for that affordability was a lack of excitement. The market was flooded with vehicles offering both reasonable prices and better performance, leaving the Champion to occupy an awkward middle ground. It wasn't thrilling or dynamic enough for those seeking something more, and it wasn't substantially cheaper than cars that provided more satisfying experiences behind the wheel. This left it appealing to a very narrow audience, those willing to prioritize basic transportation over everything else. In terms of handling and ride quality, the Champion offered a relatively comfortable experience, but nothing that stood out as exceptional. Its suspension system was serviceable, and it could navigate city streets and highways well enough for everyday driving. However, in comparison to other cars of the era that were beginning to experiment with more advanced suspension technologies, the Champion felt somewhat outdated. Its ride wasn't particularly smooth or refined, which further compounded the sense that this was a car that was stuck in the past while the world around it moved forward. As the 1940s unfolded and the automotive landscape continued to evolve, the Champion quickly found itself overtaken by newer, more exciting models. The war years would soon halt civilian car production, but even in that context, the Champion failed to leave much of a legacy. Post-war, consumers gravitated towards vehicles that symbolized progress and modernity, and the Studebaker Champion, with its underpowered engine and uninspiring design, didn't embody those qualities. While the Studebaker name would later be associated with more innovative designs, the 1941 Champion remains a reminder of the company's struggle to balance affordability with performance. The Champion's failure wasn't necessarily due to poor craftsmanship or engineering flaws. Rather, it was a victim of mediocrity in a time when the market was demanding more from cars, more power, more style, and more forward-thinking engineering. The Champion simply didn't deliver in any of these areas, and as a result, it was quickly overshadowed by more ambitious competitors. In the end, the 1941 Studebaker Champion is remembered as a symbol of missed potential. It could have been a car that struck a balance between affordability and performance, carving out a niche for itself in the crowded family car market. Instead, it became a footnote in the history of an automaker that would later go on to produce more memorable and forward-thinking vehicles. The 1942 Plymouth Special Deluxe was intended to be Plymouth's premier offering, designed to cater to buyers seeking a well-appointed, top-of-the-line vehicle. Unfortunately, despite its ambitions, the Special Deluxe failed to live up to its promise. Its uninspired design, coupled with less than stellar handling, left it overshadowed by more innovative and exciting models in the market. In an era when many automakers were experimenting with bold aesthetics and improved performance, the Special Deluxe felt outdated and unremarkable. One of the car's most glaring shortcomings was its design. The Plymouth Special Deluxe was visually conservative, with little that set it apart from other cars of its time. The exterior design lacked the dynamic lines and modern flair that were becoming increasingly popular in the early 1940s. While other manufacturers were embracing sleek, streamlined bodies that signaled progress and modernity, Plymouth stuck to a more traditional and boxy look. The result was a car that, while respectable, didn't capture the imagination of buyers who were looking for something fresh and forward-thinking. This blandness extended to the interior as well. Although the Special Deluxe was meant to be a high-end model, its cabin didn't feel particularly luxurious or innovative. The materials were adequate, but there was nothing about the interior design that conveyed a sense of excitement or cutting-edge comfort. Compared to some of its competitors, which were experimenting with more sophisticated dashboards and cabin layouts, the Special Deluxe's interior felt utilitarian, almost like an afterthought. It provided the necessary amenities, but there was little about it that made it stand out as a top-tier offering. Beyond its lackluster design, the 1942 Plymouth Special Deluxe also suffered from poor handling. The car's suspension system was not particularly advanced, resulting in a ride that felt heavy and cumbersome, especially when compared to the more agile models being produced by competitors. Cornering was an issue, with the car feeling unsteady and difficult to control at higher speeds. While it may have been acceptable for slow, steady city driving, the Special Deluxe struggled on more dynamic road conditions, where its clumsiness became apparent. The handling issues were compounded by the car's weight and underpowered engine. Despite being a top-of-the-line model, the Special Deluxe didn't offer a thrilling driving experience. Its engine was capable of getting the job done, but it didn't deliver the kind of power that would make driving enjoyable or exhilarating. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car often felt weighed down by its own bulk, especially when navigating inclines or attempting to pass other vehicles on the road. In a time when many consumers were starting to expect more from their cars in terms of performance, the Special Deluxe fell behind the curve. Part of the problem may have been Plymouth's reluctance to innovate. The company had built a reputation for producing reliable, affordable vehicles. But in doing so, they often played it safe with their designs and engineering choices. While this approach helped them maintain a loyal customer base, it also meant that models like the Special Deluxe lacked the boldness needed to compete with more daring and adventurous designs from other automakers. Buyers looking for a car that offered both practicality and excitement were more likely to be drawn to brands like Ford or Chevrolet, whose offerings felt more modern and engaging. Another factor that worked against the Special Deluxe was timing. The car was released in 1942, just before the United States entered World War II. As a result, automobile production was soon halted, and focus shifted to the war effort. This interruption in production meant that the Special Deluxe, already struggling to make an impact, never had the chance to fully establish itself in the market. When car production resumed after the war, consumers were eager for new, innovative designs that reflected the optimism and progress of the post-war era. The Special Deluxe, with its pre-war sensibilities, felt outdated almost immediately. Ultimately, the 1942 Plymouth Special Deluxe failed to leave a lasting impression because it didn't offer anything unique or memorable. It was a car that played it safe at a time when the market was ready for bold ideas and innovation. Its bland design, coupled with poor handling and unremarkable performance, left it overshadowed by more exciting and dynamic vehicles. While it may have appealed to buyers who valued reliability and practicality above all else, it didn't inspire the kind of loyalty or excitement needed to become a truly iconic model. In hindsight, the Special Deluxe serves as a reminder of the risks of complacency in the automotive industry. At a time when car manufacturers were pushing boundaries and experimenting with new technologies and designs, the 1940 Packard 110 represents a rare misstep for a brand that had long been synonymous with luxury, elegance, and prestige. Packard had built its reputation as one of America's premier luxury car manufacturers, catering to the affluent with vehicles that boasted impeccable craftsmanship, high performance, and innovative design. However, the Packard 110, introduced as a more affordable alternative, aimed to broaden the brand's appeal, but ended up diluting the very essence of what made a Packard. Well, a Packard. The Packard 110 was positioned as an entry-level model, designed to offer the cachet of the Packard name to middle-class buyers who might not otherwise afford one of the brand's premium offerings. But this attempt to cater to the mass market came at the cost of performance and prestige, both of which were the cornerstones of Packard's identity. The car was powered by a 6-cylinder engine, a significant step down from the powerful straight-8 engines that Packard was known for. The 110's 245 cubic inch engine produced around 100 horsepower, which by luxury car standards was modest at best. In comparison to its larger, more powerful siblings, the Packard 110 felt underpowered and lacked the refined, effortless performance that had become synonymous with the brand. This lackluster engine performance translated into a driving experience that was, in a word, forgettable. The Packard 110 was designed to be a practical, economical vehicle, but in doing so, it sacrificed the exhilarating, smooth ride that buyers expected from a Packard. It could get you from point A to point B, but it did so without the grace or authority that drivers had come to associate with the mark. For a brand that prided itself on offering more than just transportation, offering instead an experience of power, luxury, and sophistication, the 110 was a significant letdown. The design of the Packard 110 was another area where the car fell short. While it shared some of the styling cues of its more expensive siblings, such as the Packard 120 or the Packard Super 8, the 110 lacked the imposing presence that had made Packard cars stand out on the road. The 110 was smaller, more modest in its proportions, and its less ornate design made it feel like a lesser version of a Packard rather than a true member of the family. It was respectable, but it didn't exude the sense of exclusivity that had become a hallmark of the brand. For many buyers, owning a Packard was about making a statement, and the 110, with its more humble appearance, simply didn't command the same attention. One of the biggest criticisms of the Packard 110 was that it cheapened the brand's image. Packard had long been viewed as a symbol of status and success, with its cars being driven by captains of industry, celebrities, and the wealthy elite. The introduction of a budget model seemed to undermine this image, blurring the line between luxury and affordability. For loyal Packard customers who were accustomed to paying a premium for the finest materials, cutting-edge technology, and superior performance, the 110 felt like a betrayal of the brand's core values. It was as though Packard, in its desire to appeal to a broader market, had sacrificed the very qualities that had made it special in the first place. In terms of sales, the Packard 110 did reasonably well, particularly given the economic challenges of the time. The late 1930s and early 1940s were difficult years for the luxury car market, with the Great Depression having severely limited the number of people who could afford high-end vehicles. In that context, the 110's lower price point made it an attractive option for buyers who wanted a taste of Packard prestige without the premium price tag. But while the 110 may have helped Packard survive financially during these lean years, it also marked the beginning of the brand's gradual decline. The decision to produce the 110 and its later iterations, such as the Packard 6, signaled a shift in the company's strategy, a shift away from exclusivity and towards a more mass-market approach. This change in direction eroded Packard's status as the preeminent luxury car manufacturer in America. And in the years that followed, the brand struggled to recapture its former glory. The introduction of the 110 was a pivotal moment in Packard's history, not because the car was a success, but because it represented the beginning of the end for a company that had once been at the pinnacle of the automotive world. In retrospect, the Packard 110 is remembered as a car that tried to offer too much to too many people. And in the process, it lost sight of what made the Packard name great. It wasn't a bad car. It was reliable, affordable, and practical. But it wasn't a true Packard. It lacked the sophistication, the power, and the sense of occasion that had made the brand's larger models so desirable. The 1946 Hudson Commodore was intended to symbolize a return to luxury and grandeur after the hardships of World War II. However, the reality of the car failed to live up to the image Hudson wanted to project. Coming out of the war, many automakers rushed to release vehicles, and Hudson was no exception. But in their haste to get back to production, Hudson ended up offering a car that, while luxurious in theory, was cumbersome and outdated in practice. At the core of the Hudson Commodore's shortcomings was its excessive weight. The Commodore was a large car, boasting a wide, sturdy frame that contributed to its reputation for durability. However, this also made it incredibly heavy, and that weight negatively impacted the car's overall performance. With its large body, the Commodore felt sluggish and difficult to maneuver. While the car's robust 6- or 8-cylinder engines were powerful for the time, they struggled to move such a heavy machine with any real agility or finesse. Driving the Commodore felt like a chore, especially on winding roads or in city traffic. It wasn't a car that encouraged long drives or smooth, effortless handling. Instead, the car felt clumsy, and its heavy steering made it tiring to drive for extended periods. Hudson had hoped that the Commodore's solid build and large size would convey a sense of luxury, but in reality, it came across as outdated and impractical. This was especially true at a time when consumers, emerging from the war and eager for a fresh start, were craving something more modern, sleek, and stylish. The post-war car market was all about new beginnings, and many automakers introduced forward-thinking designs that embraced the optimism of the era. Unfortunately, the Hudson Commodore failed to keep up with these changes. Its bulky pre-war styling looked out of place in a world that was ready to embrace streamlined, futuristic aesthetics. The design of the 1946 Commodore reflected Hudson's adherence to the look of the 1930s, with little in the way of modernization. Its fenders were large and pronounced, its grille was wide and filled with chrome, and the overall profile of the car seemed more suited to the era before the war than to the booming post-war years. This gave the Commodore a distinctly old-fashioned look when compared to sleeker, more aerodynamic offerings from competitors like General Motors and Ford. Many buyers, eager to leave behind the past and embrace a new era of prosperity and progress, found the Commodore's styling to be out of step with the times. The car's interior, while spacious, also contributed to its image as a relic of the past. The Commodore offered plush seats and a roomy cabin, but it lacked the more modern conveniences that other manufacturers were beginning to introduce. Hudson may have intended for the Commodore to feel luxurious, but its design choices made it seem more cumbersome than refined. While the car offered decent comfort for passengers, its sheer size and poor handling made it less appealing to drivers. Navigating tight turns or parking in crowded lots was a hassle, and the Commodore's large turning radius only added to the sense of unwieldiness. Hudson's inability to innovate in the post-war period was a critical issue for the brand, and the Commodore became a symbol of this stagnation. As the automotive industry rapidly evolved, with new technologies and designs appearing at a fast pace, Hudson stuck to what had worked for them before the war: big, sturdy cars with conservative styling. This lack of progression meant that, while competitors were moving forward, Hudson was being left behind. The Commodore's outdated appearance and performance were stark reminders that the company had failed to adapt to the changing market. The car's heavy build and outdated appearance were significant drawbacks, but perhaps the most damning flaw of the Commodore was its poor handling. Its weight made it difficult to control, and its suspension system did little to compensate for the car's bulk. The Commodore felt more like a tank than a car, and its ride was far from the smooth, luxurious experience that buyers expected from a premium vehicle. On uneven or bumpy roads, the car's suspension struggled to absorb shocks, leading to a jarring ride that was uncomfortable for both driver and passengers. It wasn't just the handling that suffered. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car's brakes, while adequate, had to work hard to slow down such a massive vehicle. Despite its flaws, the Hudson Commodore did have a few redeeming qualities. Its spacious interior made it a comfortable car for passengers, and its reputation for reliability ensured that it could stand up to the rigors of daily use. But in the competitive post-war market, comfort and reliability weren't enough to save the Commodore from becoming obsolete. Consumers wanted cars that felt modern, exciting, and dynamic, qualities that the Commodore simply didn't offer. The 1947 Cadillac Series 61, like many luxury cars of its era, aimed to encapsulate opulence and grandeur in every detail. Cadillac was known for producing top-tier vehicles, and the Series 61 was positioned as an entry-level model for those seeking the prestige of the brand without venturing into the higher-priced Series 62 or the Fleetwood models. However, despite its attempts at accessibility, the Series 61 was burdened by its oversized design and impracticality, making it an example of Cadillac's struggle to balance luxury with everyday usability. One of the most glaring issues with the 1947 Cadillac Series 61 was its sheer size. While large, stately vehicles were often seen as a mark of affluence and success, there was a fine line between impressive and unwieldy. The Series 61 crossed that line. Its extended length and substantial width made it a difficult car to navigate through city streets or tight parking spaces. For drivers who were accustomed to vehicles that were more nimble and manageable, the Series 61 felt more like steering a boat than driving a car. The massive body made even routine tasks, such as parking or maneuvering through traffic, a stressful affair. The weight of the Cadillac Series 61 further contributed to its impracticality. Weighing in at over 4,000 pounds, the car was a heavyweight not just in terms of luxury, but also in terms of performance. Its bulk greatly affected acceleration, making it sluggish off the line, and its fuel economy suffered as a result of the heavy frame. While a large V8 engine powered the car, it simply wasn't enough to overcome the vehicle's weight in a way that made it feel quick or responsive. For drivers expecting a smooth and powerful experience behind the wheel, the Series 61 was a disappointment. Despite Cadillac's reputation for building luxurious, high-performance cars, the Series 61 felt more like an aging giant than a sleek, modern luxury sedan. The post-war market was rapidly evolving, with consumers seeking vehicles that combined style, comfort, and practicality. Many car buyers were moving toward vehicles that offered both sophistication and ease of use. Unfortunately, the Series 61's oversized dimensions and clumsy handling worked against it in this regard. It may have looked impressive sitting in a driveway or gliding down a boulevard, but the experience of actually driving the car revealed its limitations. For many, the Cadillac Series 61 was a case of too much excess. Cadillac, like many luxury automakers, sought to make a statement with its cars, a statement of grandeur, wealth, and comfort. However, by making the Series 61 so large, they pushed the boundaries of practicality too far. Consumers who were seeking luxury without compromise found themselves in a car that was cumbersome to drive and difficult to live with on a daily basis. While the car certainly had an air of importance, that sense of luxury came at a price that wasn't just financial, but also practical. Inside, the Series 61 did deliver on Cadillac's promise of comfort and opulence. The cabin was spacious, with large, comfortable seats and a host of luxury features that made the car feel every bit the high-end vehicle Cadillac was known for. The dashboard and instrument panel were filled with chrome accents, and the upholstery was plush and inviting. However, the interior sense of space came at the cost of maneuverability. The car's massive size, which allowed for such a roomy interior, was a hindrance on the road. Additionally, while the Series 61 was positioned as a more affordable Cadillac, it still carried a price tag that placed it out of reach for many post-war buyers who were looking for practical yet stylish cars. This placed the car in a sort of no-man's land, too large and cumbersome to appeal to the average driver, yet not luxurious or prestigious enough to attract those who could afford the higher-end Cadillacs. Another issue was that the Series 61's design lacked the sleekness and modernity that post-war consumers were beginning to crave. The design still retained elements of the pre-war era, with rounded edges and chrome accents that felt out of sync with the emerging trends in automotive styling. The car's heavy use of chrome, while luxurious in appearance, added to its bloated feel. Compared to some of its more stylish contemporaries, the Series 61 felt dated. The excessive weight and size also impacted the car's ride quality. While it was certainly capable of delivering a comfortable ride on smooth highways, it was far less enjoyable on uneven roads or in city driving conditions. The suspension struggled to manage the car's bulk, and passengers often felt the impact of bumps and potholes more than they would in a smaller, lighter vehicle. The 1944 Deluxe Tutor was a car that, despite its solid engineering and affordability, ultimately fell short in terms of design and innovation. In a time when the automotive world was beginning to embrace more modern and forward-thinking aesthetics, the Ford Deluxe Tutor seemed stuck in the past. Its design was a relic of an earlier era, with few updates or exciting features to capture the attention of consumers who were increasingly looking for cars that combined style, performance, and modern conveniences. At first glance, the Ford Deluxe Tutor had a conservative, unremarkable look. Its rounded, bulbous body design was indicative of pre-war automobiles, but it lacked the sleek lines and dynamic styling that were beginning to emerge in competitors' models. The car's profile featured soft curves and minimal ornamentation, making it appear functional but hardly exciting. While some might argue that the Deluxe Tutor's design reflected Ford's commitment to building dependable, accessible cars, it also underscored the brand's hesitance to push the envelope and take risks with their design language. One of the most significant criticisms of the 1944 Deluxe Tutor was that it represented stagnation in an industry that was rapidly evolving. At a time when other automakers were introducing bold, aerodynamic designs and experimenting with new technologies, the Deluxe Tutor remained rooted in convention. It was a car that seemed more concerned with maintaining the status quo than with leading the charge into the future. Ford's reluctance to innovate left the Deluxe Tutor feeling out of step with the growing consumer demand for vehicles that offered not only practicality, but also a sense of excitement and modernity. The interior of the 1940 Ford Deluxe Tutor, much like its exterior, was functional but uninspired. The cabin was spacious enough to accommodate a family, which was one of its selling points, but the layout and materials felt basic and unremarkable. Ford had not yet embraced some of the luxury and convenience features that were beginning to become popular in the market, leaving the interior feeling sparse. The dashboard was simple, with few embellishments, and the upholstery, while durable, lacked the comfort or elegance found in competing models. In an era when cars were becoming more than just tools for transportation, the Deluxe Tutor's interior felt utilitarian and outdated. Performance-wise, the Ford Deluxe Tutor was reliable but unexceptional. It came equipped with a flathead V8 engine, which provided decent power for the time, but it wasn't enough to make the car stand out. The driving experience was stable and predictable, but there was little in the way of excitement or refinement. Competitors were beginning to offer smoother rides and more responsive handling, leaving the Deluxe Tutor feeling a step behind. While it may have been enough to satisfy drivers who prioritized dependability over thrill, it did little to inspire the passion that was starting to be associated with the more performance-oriented cars of the era. Ford's decision to play it safe with the Deluxe Tutor may have been rooted in the company's desire to appeal to the broadest possible market, but this approach backfired as tastes shifted. The late 1930s and early 1940s were a time of innovation in automotive design, with manufacturers like Chrysler, Buick, and even some European brands experimenting with new body shapes, advanced suspensions, and aerodynamic elements. Ford, on the other hand, seemed content to recycle older designs and avoid the risks that come with innovation. As a result, the Deluxe Tutor failed to capture the imagination of buyers who were starting to see their cars as more than just appliances for transportation. By 1940, consumers were also becoming more style-conscious, and the Ford Deluxe Tutor's design simply didn't resonate with this growing demand for flair and sophistication. It was a car that blended in rather than stood out. The grille, for instance, was a conservative affair, lacking the boldness or distinctiveness of competitors. Similarly, the overall shape of the car, while functional, didn't take advantage of the streamlined, Art Deco-inspired aesthetics that were becoming increasingly popular. The lack of visual excitement hurt the Deluxe Tutor's appeal, especially as consumers began to equate innovative design with progress and modernity. The onset of World War II also played a role in the car's limited success. With the war looming on the horizon, the focus for many automakers shifted from producing exciting new models to meeting the practical needs of a nation on the brink of conflict. However, even before the war fully impacted the automotive industry, the 1944 Deluxe Tutor was already seen as a car that failed to evolve. It represented an era that was quickly passing, and as such, it struggled to remain relevant in a world that was changing rapidly. The 1941 Chevrolet Special Deluxe, despite its grand-sounding name, was a car that ultimately fell short of offering the sophistication and excitement its moniker promised. At a time when the automotive market was growing more competitive, with manufacturers pushing the boundaries of design and performance, the Special Deluxe remained overly basic and uninspired. For many buyers, the car felt like a missed opportunity, especially considering that Chevrolet had the resources and reputation to deliver something far more compelling. On the surface, the Special Deluxe had a simple, utilitarian design that was serviceable, but far from memorable. Its body lines were rounded and conservative, a far cry from the sleek, streamlined designs that were starting to make waves in the industry. While competitors like Ford and Chrysler were beginning to introduce more dynamic and modern styling, Chevrolet's approach with the Special Deluxe seemed hesitant, almost as if the company was afraid to take risks. The result was a car that blended in with the crowd rather than standing out. The grille of the Special Deluxe was a clear reflection of its overall design ethos, functional but devoid of flair. The front end lacked the boldness seen in some of its rivals, with minimal chrome and unremarkable detailing. The headlights were simply round and standard, contributing to the overall sense that this was a car that prioritized practicality over style. The lack of visual excitement made it difficult for the Special Deluxe to catch the eye of buyers who were beginning to appreciate cars as expressions of personal style, not just utilitarian machines. Inside, the Chevrolet Special Deluxe continued its theme of simplicity. The interior, while adequate, didn't offer the level of comfort or luxury that consumers in the deluxe market segment might have expected. The seats were functional, but lacked the plushness or premium materials that were becoming increasingly common in more upscale models. The dashboard, too, was plain, with basic instrumentation that did little to convey a sense of modernity or innovation. The cabin was roomy enough, but without the thoughtful touches or conveniences that could have elevated it beyond the bare essentials. Under the hood, the Special Deluxe was equipped with a 6-cylinder engine that delivered a modest level of power. While reliable, it was far from exciting. The car's performance was considered mediocre, with no real standout features in terms of speed, acceleration, or handling. In an era where consumers were beginning to appreciate cars not just for their ability to get from point A to point B, but also for their driving dynamics, the Special Deluxe simply didn't rise to the occasion. It was a car that did its job, but without any real enthusiasm. One of the major critiques of the 1941 Chevrolet Special Deluxe was that it didn't live up to the increasing sophistication that buyers were expecting from their cars. The automotive industry was undergoing significant changes during the early 1940s, with innovations in engine technology, suspension, and design making cars more enjoyable to drive and own. However, the Special Deluxe seemed content to stick to the basics, offering little in the way of advancement or excitement. This conservative approach ultimately left it feeling dated, even at the time of its release. Another factor that hurt the appeal of the Special Deluxe was the growing consumer desire for cars that offered a bit of flair and personality. The late 1930s and early 1940s saw the rise of more stylish, streamlined designs, as well as increased attention to comfort and luxury features, even in more affordable models. Chevrolet's decision to play it safe with the Special Deluxe's styling and features made it feel out of touch with these evolving tastes. For buyers who were looking for a car that could combine practicality with a bit of pizzazz, the Special Deluxe fell flat. The competition at the time was fierce, with many automakers vying for the attention of a post-Depression, pre-war American public that was starting to see cars as more than just transportation. Ford, for example, was introducing new V8 engines and more modern designs, while Chrysler was pushing the envelope with aerodynamic body shapes. In contrast, Chevrolet's Special Deluxe felt conservative and uninspired, as though it was still clinging to an older idea of what a family car should be. This reluctance to embrace new trends hurt its ability to compete in a market that was moving quickly toward innovation. While the Special Deluxe may have had its fans, those who appreciated its reliability and no-nonsense approach to driving, it ultimately failed to make a significant impact on the automotive landscape. It was a car that did its job, but without much excitement or personality. The 1949 Nash 600 was intended to offer a practical, affordable car, but its unusual styling and lackluster performance left much to be desired. As the post-war automotive industry began to flourish with sleek, modern designs and improved engineering, Nash's attempt to create a budget-friendly vehicle ultimately struggled to meet consumer expectations. While the Nash 600 did introduce some innovative features, such as its unibody construction, these advancements were overshadowed by the car's odd appearance and mediocre power, making it less appealing to the average buyer. One of the most glaring issues with the Nash 600 was its unconventional design. The car featured a semi-fastback shape, which was neither fully aerodynamic nor aesthetically pleasing. Its rounded body gave it a somewhat awkward and bulbous look, a far cry from the sharp, elegant lines of other cars emerging in the late 1940s. This distinctive but peculiar style made it difficult for the Nash 600 to blend in with the growing preference for sleek, futuristic cars that symbolize post-war prosperity and innovation. For many potential buyers, the car simply looked too strange. The Nash 600's size and proportions also contributed to its alienating appearance. It was designed to be compact, but its rounded roofline and narrow stance gave it a somewhat top-heavy, unbalanced look. The car's proportions seemed slightly off, making it appear less sophisticated compared to the more gracefully styled sedans of its time. Nash's intent to create a unique silhouette may have backfired, as buyers who wanted something that reflected the emerging trends of automotive design were often put off by the Nash 600's quirky form. The car's unusual styling wasn't its only problem, though. The Nash 600's engine, while practical for everyday use, lacked the power that buyers were beginning to expect, even from economy cars. Its 172 cubic inch flathead inline-six engine produced a modest 82 horsepower, which was adequate for basic transportation, but underwhelming in an era where consumers were increasingly drawn to vehicles with more powerful, responsive engines. The Nash 600 was designed for efficiency with an emphasis on fuel economy and lightweight construction, but this came at the expense of performance, making the car feel sluggish on the road. In terms of driving dynamics, the Nash 600 was competent, but it didn't offer much excitement. Its unibody construction, a relatively new feature at the time, did contribute to a smoother and more solid ride compared to some of its competitors, but the car's handling was still far from sporty. It lacked the nimbleness that many buyers were looking for, especially as American car culture began to place more emphasis on the driving experience and performance. The Nash 600 may have been fine for leisurely drives, but it wasn't the kind of car that inspired enthusiasm behind the wheel. Additionally, the interior of the Nash 600, while functional, was not particularly luxurious or inviting. As an economy car, it wasn't expected to offer high-end amenities, but its interior design was still fairly basic and unremarkable. The seats were comfortable enough, but the overall cabin layout lacked the refinement and attention to detail found in some of its competitors. The Nash 600 did, however, benefit from a relatively spacious interior, considering its compact exterior dimensions, thanks in part to its unibody design. This provided some practicality, but it wasn't enough to make up for the car's other shortcomings. The car's reputation for fuel efficiency, while commendable, didn't carry enough weight to overcome its other flaws. With its unibody construction and light curb weight, the Nash 600 was capable of impressive fuel economy for its time, achieving around 25 to 30 miles per gallon. This made it an appealing option for budget-conscious buyers in the immediate post-war years, when fuel efficiency was still a consideration. However, as the American economy improved and gas prices stabilized, buyers became more interested in power, style, and comfort, areas where the Nash 600 was severely lacking. Despite its affordability and some innovative features, the Nash 600 simply didn't resonate with consumers in the way Nash had hoped. Its odd styling alienated those looking for a more conventional car, and its underpowered engine left buyers wanting more in terms of performance. In a decade where automotive design was rapidly evolving, the Nash 600 felt stuck in between two worlds, offering neither the style nor the power that buyers increasingly demanded. In the end, the Nash 600 remains a curious footnote in automotive history. It was a car that aimed to balance affordability and innovation, but it ended up missing the mark in terms of mass appeal. The 1942 DeSoto Custom represented a curious blend of size, comfort, and understated luxury, but it ultimately fell flat in the eyes of consumers seeking performance and excitement. As the world emerged from the shadow of World War II, Americans were ready for vehicles that not only offered utility, but also sparked a sense of joy and adventure on the open road. The DeSoto Custom, however, struggled to capture that spirit, largely due to its heavy build and lackluster performance. At first glance, the DeSoto Custom showcased the brand's commitment to luxury, featuring a spacious interior adorned with soft upholstery and a range of comfort-oriented amenities. It offered conveniences like power windows and a smooth ride, which were appealing during a time when the average driver was looking for comfort after years of wartime austerity. However, the very features that were meant to elevate the DeSoto's standing instead contributed to its shortcomings. The car's weight, partly a result of its large size and plush interior, made it feel cumbersome on the road. When driving the DeSoto Custom, one couldn't help but notice the sluggishness that came with its heavy frame. Although equipped with a respectable engine for its time, the car lacked the horsepower needed to make it feel responsive and engaging. Instead of the invigorating drive that post-war consumers craved, the DeSoto delivered a more leisurely experience that could easily be described as uninspiring. In a decade that celebrated speed and innovation, the Custom's performance simply didn't measure up. This sense of sluggishness was compounded by a lack of agility. Turning corners and navigating city streets could feel like a chore in such a bulky vehicle. Drivers often found themselves longing for a more spirited driving experience that other brands like Ford and Chevrolet were beginning to offer with their sleek and powerful new models. The DeSoto Custom also suffered from a design that, while luxurious in intent, ultimately felt more conservative than cutting edge. In a post-war landscape where many manufacturers were experimenting with bold designs and sleek lines, the Custom's styling was somewhat bland. Its large, boxy shape may have exuded a certain presence, but it didn't evoke the excitement that many consumers were looking for in their new cars. The Custom didn't push the envelope in terms of aesthetics, leaving it feeling dated even upon its release. As competitors rolled out models that featured eye-catching designs and a sense of dynamism, the DeSoto Custom appeared as an afterthought. Moreover, as the automotive landscape began to shift toward more modern and innovative designs, the DeSoto Custom's heavy traditional construction began to feel increasingly out of place. With the introduction of new materials and manufacturing techniques, other brands were producing lighter, more fuel-efficient cars that provided the performance and style that consumers desired. The DeSoto, on the other hand, felt trapped in the past, clinging to a form of luxury that was no longer resonating with the evolving preferences of the American public. Despite its shortcomings, the DeSoto Custom was not without its merits. It was built with a solid frame and boasted a reputation for reliability, factors that may have appealed to certain buyers. Additionally, it did manage to incorporate a number of luxury features that were beginning to emerge in the automotive market, such as plush seating and high-quality materials. However, these positives were not enough to outweigh the overall impression of a vehicle that failed to excite. In the end, the 1942 DeSoto Custom serves as an interesting case study in a time of significant change within the automotive industry. It reflected a moment when manufacturers were grappling with how to transition from the wartime economy to a thriving consumer market. While the Custom aimed to provide comfort and luxury, it ultimately delivered an experience that felt heavy and uninspiring. In an era eager for innovation excitement, and a renewed sense of freedom on the road, the Datsun Custom simply did not meet the moment, leaving it as a forgettable entry in automotive history. As consumers began to gravitate toward lighter, sportier vehicles, the Custom faded into the background, overshadowed by more vibrant competitors eager to capture the spirit of the times. The 1948 Dodge Wayfarer was emblematic of an era when automotive manufacturers were wrestling with the transition from wartime production to civilian markets. While some brands embraced innovation and style, the Wayfarers seemed to take a more conservative, even lackluster approach. Marketed as an affordable option, the Wayfarer ended up reflecting the bare minimum of what consumers expected from a car, failing to offer any enticing features or design elements that could capture attention or ignite enthusiasm. At its core, the Wayfarer was a vehicle aimed at budget-conscious buyers looking for basic transportation rather than a thrilling driving experience. This simplicity was both its appeal and its downfall. The car was stripped down, offering very few features that would enhance comfort or driving pleasure. While some consumers appreciated the utilitarian aspect of a no-frills vehicle, many others found it dishearteningly basic. The interior was devoid of the comforts that many were beginning to expect, such as plush seating, advanced dashboard technology, or even a stylish layout. Instead, the Wayfarer provided a bare-bones experience that felt more like a necessity than a choice. In terms of performance, the Dodge Wayfarer didn't do much to impress. Its engine was modest at best, delivering only a lackluster driving experience. This was particularly noticeable during a time when competitors were beginning to introduce more powerful engines and sporty designs that appealed to a burgeoning desire for speed and excitement. Instead of the zippy performance that many consumers craved, the Wayfarer offered a sluggish ride that was often described as uninspiring. Its handling was adequate but lacked the responsiveness that drivers desired, leading many to view it as a chore rather than a pleasure to drive. From a design standpoint, the Wayfarer was also forgettable. Its exterior styling was plain and unassuming, with little to distinguish it from other vehicles on the road. While many cars of the late 1940s were beginning to incorporate curves and a sense of fluidity in their designs, the Wayfarer maintained a boxy, angular aesthetic that felt dated even upon its release. This lack of visual flair meant that it often faded into the background, unable to compete with the more eye-catching models available at the time. Furthermore, the Wayfarer's minimalism extended beyond just features and aesthetics. It also translated into a lack of marketing pizzazz. Other brands were creating buzz with flashy ads and bold promotions, but the Wayfarer seemed content to quietly exist without much fanfare. This approach, while cost-effective, resulted in the car being largely overlooked by potential buyers who were drawn to the more dynamic and engaging offerings from competitors. While the Dodge Wayfarer may have served its purpose as an entry-level vehicle, it ultimately failed to resonate with a market eager for innovation and excitement. The lack of distinguishing features and performance options left it stranded in a time when consumers were ready to embrace cars that offered more than just transportation. In summary, the 1948 Dodge Wayfarer represented a missed opportunity in an era ripe for automotive evolution. It was a vehicle that, despite its affordability, lacked the appeal that would draw consumers in. By offering minimal features, boring design, and uninspired performance, the Wayfarer positioned itself as a forgettable footnote in automotive history, overshadowed by competitors who were willing to take risks and innovate. While it met the basic needs of transportation, it ultimately fell short of creating the kind of connection with drivers that makes a car truly memorable. The Wayfarer serves as a reminder that, in a time of rapid change and consumer excitement, sometimes simply being cheap isn't enough to win the hearts of buyers looking for something more. The 1949 Kaiser Special stands as a notable entry in the post-war automotive landscape, aiming to capture the burgeoning consumer interest in new vehicles that embodied modernity and style. At first glance, the Kaiser Special presented an attractive package featuring a sleek and streamlined design that was a departure from the boxy utilitarian shapes that had dominated the pre-war era. With its smooth lines, stylish chrome accents, and eye-catching color options, the Kaiser Special had the potential to become a desirable choice for buyers looking for something unique. However, despite its promising exterior, the vehicle was plagued by significant shortcomings that ultimately limited its appeal and market success. One of the most glaring issues with the Kaiser Special was its engine performance. Positioned as a vehicle meant to embody both style and capability, it fell short in delivering the power and driving experience that consumers craved. Equipped with an underwhelming engine that produced a mere 100 horsepower, the Kaiser Special lacked the punch that many of its competitors were offering. In an era when American consumers were increasingly drawn to vehicles with robust powertrains and impressive acceleration, the Special's meager engine left it feeling sluggish and uninspired. The excitement of driving was diminished, and many potential buyers were left yearning for a vehicle that could deliver the spirited performance they expected from a modern car. Adding to the vehicle's woes was its pricing strategy. The Kaiser Special was marketed as a premium model, yet it came with a price tag that was higher than many comparable vehicles in the market. In a time when budget-conscious consumers were beginning to emerge in the post-war economic landscape, the Special's elevated price point made it less appealing. Buyers found themselves facing a dilemma: invest in a Kaiser Special that promised style but underperformed in power and practicality, or opt for a rival model that offered better performance and more value for their hard-earned money. As consumer preferences began to shift towards practicality and performance, the Kaiser Special's combination of an overpriced label and underwhelming engine left it in a precarious position. Furthermore, the Kaiser Special's positioning within the broader context of the automotive market also proved to be problematic. The late 1940s marked a pivotal moment in American automotive history, characterized by a significant increase in competition as manufacturers ramped up production to meet consumer demand. While Kaiser Frazer had carved out a niche for itself in the early years of the post-war era, the company struggled to maintain its momentum amid a growing wave of new models that offered superior performance and innovative features. The Kaiser Special, unfortunately, found itself at a disadvantage in this increasingly crowded landscape. As competitors introduced vehicles with more powerful engines, advanced technology, and a greater focus on consumer desires, the Special began to fade from the spotlight, overshadowed by more dynamic options that better catered to the expectations of the era's buyers. Additionally, the Kaiser Special suffered from a branding challenge. Despite its efforts to position itself as a stylish and forward-thinking alternative to more established manufacturers, the car was often viewed as a second-tier option, lacking the prestige associated with brands like Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler. This perception affected the Special's marketability, as many consumers gravitated toward vehicles that carried a sense of heritage and reliability. The Kaiser Special's inability to establish a strong brand identity further hindered its appeal, as potential buyers looked for vehicles that not only met their practical needs, but also reflected their aspirations and lifestyles. In retrospect, the 1949 Kaiser Special serves as a cautionary tale in the world of automotive design and marketing. It highlights the importance of aligning a vehicle's performance capabilities with consumer expectations, particularly in a rapidly changing market. While its design was undoubtedly appealing, the Special's shortcomings in engine performance, pricing, and brand identity ultimately led to its lack of success. The disconnect between the car's attractive exterior and its disappointing performance illustrates a fundamental truth in the automotive industry. A car must deliver on both form and function to truly resonate with buyers. As a result, the Kaiser Special slipped into relative obscurity, overshadowed by models that could better meet the demands of the era. Despite its initial promise and stylish appearance, it became just another example of how even the most visually appealing vehicles can falter when they fail to live up to the expectations of performance and practicality. The 1940 Oldsmobile Series 70 is often remembered as a car that attempted to combine innovation with luxury, but it ultimately fell short of expectations due to its overly complicated design. At first glance, the Series 70 presented an attractive silhouette, embodying the sleek, streamlined aesthetics that characterized many vehicles of the late 1930s and early 1940s. Its styling aimed to convey a sense of modernity and sophistication, with chrome accents, elegant curves, and an overall aura of prestige. However, beneath its polished exterior lay a host of mechanical complexities that would prove to be its undoing. The Oldsmobile Series 70 featured a range of advanced engineering solutions for its time, including a more powerful engine and innovative suspension design. However, this focus on complexity introduced several reliability issues. Owners quickly found that the intricate mechanics made routine maintenance a daunting task. The car's design was filled with quirks and features that required specialized knowledge and tools for repairs. As a result, many drivers experienced frustration when seeking routine service or repairs, leading to an overall negative perception of the vehicle. The promise of luxury and advanced engineering became overshadowed by the practical realities of ownership, leaving many drivers feeling disillusioned. In addition to maintenance difficulties, the Series 70's complicated design also contributed to reliability problems over time. With numerous interconnected systems and components, the potential for breakdowns increased significantly. Parts could wear out or fail more quickly than those on simpler, more straightforward models, leaving owners grappling with unexpected repair costs and inconveniences. What was intended to set the Series 70 apart in a competitive market instead became a significant drawback that affected the car's long-term viability and appeal. Moreover, the challenges of the Oldsmobile Series 70's design were exacerbated by the context of the era. As World War II loomed on the horizon, consumer priorities began to shift toward practicality and reliability in their vehicles. In a time of uncertainty, many buyers were looking for dependable cars that could withstand the rigors of daily life. The complexities of the Series 70's design, combined with its increasing maintenance demands, made it less appealing compared to other options that prioritized ease of use and straightforward engineering. Furthermore, the Oldsmobile brand, known for its association with quality and innovation, found itself struggling to maintain its image amidst rising competition. While the Series 70 was intended to symbolize the brand's commitment to advanced technology and luxury, its shortcomings began to tarnish its reputation. As consumers weighed their options, they gravitated towards brands and models that delivered a more reliable and user-friendly experience, leaving the Oldsmobile Series 70 to languish in the shadows. In retrospect, the 1940 Oldsmobile Series 70 stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of over-engineering and the importance of balancing innovation with practicality. While its design sought to impress, it ultimately failed to deliver the reliability and ease of use that consumers craved during a pivotal moment in automotive history. As buyers increasingly prioritized functionality and dependability, the Series 70 became an example of how ambitious engineering goals can sometimes lead to unintended consequences. The Oldsmobile Series 70 serves as a reminder that a car must not only look good, but also perform well in the real world. The complexities that initially seemed appealing transformed into obstacles that ultimately hindered the vehicle's success. Its legacy is a testament to the importance of simplicity and reliability in automotive design, highlighting the need for manufacturers to consider the long-term implications of their engineering choices on consumer satisfaction and brand reputation. As a result, the Oldsmobile Series 70 remains a symbol of what happens when ambition outpaces practicality, offering valuable lessons for future generations of automotive designers and engineers. The 1941 Lincoln Continental is often hailed as a stunning example of American automotive design, a car that embodies elegance and sophistication with its flowing lines and luxurious features. However, despite its undeniable beauty and status as a symbol of opulence, the Continental also became notorious for its high price tag and impractical nature, rendering it inaccessible to many potential buyers. At first glance, the Lincoln Continental captivated audiences with its graceful silhouette, luxurious interior, and meticulous craftsmanship. It was a car that exuded prestige and sophistication, appealing to the upper echelons of society and capturing the attention of those who could afford it. The Continental was designed for affluent consumers who desired not only a means of transportation, but also a statement of their wealth and status. However, this exclusivity came with a significant cost, making the vehicle out of reach for the average buyer. With a price point that placed it firmly in the luxury category, the Continental became a dream for many, but a reality for only a select few. While the Continental's aesthetic appeal was undeniable, it was the practical aspects of ownership that left much to be desired. The car's size and weight, while contributing to its imposing presence, made it cumbersome to maneuver, especially in urban environments. Drivers often found themselves struggling with its bulk, which could be challenging to handle in tight spaces or during parking. This lack of practicality deterred many potential buyers who valued not only style, but also ease of use in their vehicles. Moreover, the maintenance requirements for the 1941 Lincoln Continental were another source of frustration for owners. The complexity of the car's design, coupled with the luxurious features that made it desirable, translated into higher costs for upkeep. Finding replacement parts or qualified mechanics who could handle the intricacies of the Continental's engineering often proved to be a challenge. As a result, many owners quickly found themselves overwhelmed by the demands of maintaining such a lavish vehicle, leading to disillusionment with their purchase. In addition to the financial burden of ownership, the Continental's impracticality extended beyond maintenance issues. The car's lavish interior and extensive features, while intended to provide comfort and convenience, often came at the expense of functionality. The rear seating area, for example, while elegantly appointed, was not always conducive to ease of access or space for passengers. For families or individuals who required a versatile vehicle, the Continental's design fell short of practical expectations. Furthermore, as World War II approached, the economic climate shifted, and many consumers began to prioritize practicality and value over luxury. The market for high-end vehicles like the Lincoln Continental became increasingly niche, and as the war efforts took precedence, the allure of lavish cars diminished in the face of more pressing needs. Many consumers turned their attention toward reliable, economical vehicles that could withstand the challenges of everyday life, leaving the Continental as a luxurious relic of a bygone era. The 1941 Lincoln Continental serves as a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between luxury and practicality in automotive design. While its beauty and craftsmanship remain celebrated, the car's high cost and maintenance challenges ultimately overshadowed its appeal. The Continental's story illustrates the importance of understanding consumer needs and preferences, especially during times of economic uncertainty. In a world where practicality often reigns supreme, the Continental stands as a testament to the perils of prioritizing luxury at the expense of accessibility and usability. In retrospect, the Lincoln Continental remains an iconic symbol of automotive elegance, yet it also embodies the challenges that arise when luxury meets impracticality. Its legacy is one of beauty tempered by the realities of ownership, highlighting the need for manufacturers to consider not only the allure of their designs, but also the practical implications for consumers. As a result, the 1941 Lincoln Continental is both celebrated and critiqued, serving as a lesson for future generations of automotive designers and a reminder of the ever-evolving relationship between luxury and practicality in the automotive world. The 1946 Ford Super Deluxe was a car that carried the weight of post-war expectations, but fell short in delivering on the hopes and dreams of consumers. After World War II, there was a palpable excitement in the air surrounding the return of car production. Consumers were eager for innovation, fresh designs, and advanced features that would reflect the optimism of a new era. However, when Ford reintroduced the Super Deluxe, it became clear that the company was offering something that was, in essence, a pre-war relic dressed up in old clothing. The Super Deluxe had been a popular model before the war, and many expected that Ford would capitalize on the momentum by giving it a post-war facelift, something fresh and modern to mark the return of peacetime industry. But what they got instead was a car that looked almost identical to the one they had seen before, 1941. The Super Deluxe didn't offer the dramatic changes that people were craving, and its lack of innovation left buyers with a sense of disappointment. While the world had moved on, the Super Deluxe remained stuck in the past. In terms of design, the Super Deluxe's exterior was undeniably conservative. Ford kept the familiar rounded, bulky shape, a styling choice that had been popular in the early 1940s, but felt increasingly outdated by 1946. While competitors were starting to introduce more streamlined, modern cars with bold new designs, Ford stuck to what it knew. The result was a car that looked like it belonged to a previous era, even though it was being marketed as part of the post-war resurgence. Buyers, fresh off years of war-related deprivation, wanted something exciting, a symbol of progress and renewal. Unfortunately, the Super Deluxe didn't represent that. The lack of mechanical updates also hindered the Super Deluxe's appeal. Under the hood, the car was virtually unchanged from its pre-war counterpart. It still featured the same flathead V8 engine that, while reliable, was far from cutting edge by the time 1946 rolled around. Consumers, many of whom had dreamed of new advancements in automotive technology during the war years, were left wanting more. They expected improved performance, enhanced features, or at least some modern engineering upgrades. But the Super Deluxe failed to deliver on all fronts. The Parmesan Ford Super Deluxe was also a victim of changing consumer tastes. After years of rationing and restricted automobile production, buyers were looking for more than just utility. They wanted style and excitement. The war had changed the landscape of American industry, and with it, the expectations of consumers. The post-war car market was filled with anticipation, as people sought vehicles that would be emblematic of a new era of prosperity. Unfortunately, the Super Deluxe's modest features and uninspired design didn't reflect this desire for something fresh and forward-thinking. In terms of comfort and amenities, the Super Deluxe offered very little that was new or exciting. The interior was functional but plain, offering few of the luxuries or conveniences that people were coming to expect from post-war automobiles. There was little in the way of innovation or flair, making the car feel uninspired. Its reputation became that of a vehicle that was simply good enough, but not something to get excited about. At a time when buyers were eager for cars that could symbolize a bright future, the Super Deluxe felt like a holdover from the past. The disappointment surrounding the 1946 Ford Super Deluxe wasn't just about what the car was, it was about what it failed to be. Ford had an opportunity to capture the hearts of a market hungry for innovation, but by sticking too closely to its pre-war designs, it missed the mark. The car became emblematic of a missed opportunity, a reminder that the automotive industry was on the verge of a new era, one that required boldness and creativity. In the broader context of post-war automobile history, the 1946 Ford Super Deluxe is often remembered as a car that simply didn't evolve with the times. It wasn't a bad car by any means. It was reliable and serviceable, but it lacked the excitement, innovation, and forward-thinking design that the public craved in the immediate aftermath of World War II. It became a symbol of a company that was slow to adapt, hesitant to take risks, and content to rest on its laurels at a time when consumers were looking for something new. In retrospect, the Super Deluxe serves as a reminder of the importance of innovation in times of great change. The post-war period was a time of optimism, and the automotive industry was one of the sectors that benefited most from that optimism. The companies that embraced change and dared to introduce bold modern designs were the ones that thrived in the years to come. Ford, with the Super Deluxe, missed an opportunity to be part of that wave of excitement. The 1940 Buick Century was meant to be a performance-oriented vehicle, a car that could blend speed, power, and style into one impressive package. Buick had marketed the Century as a fast and powerful automobile, hinting at its potential to deliver an exhilarating driving experience. However, in reality, the car struggled to live up to these promises due to its oversized body and poor fuel economy. One of the Century's biggest downfalls was its sheer size. While larger cars were popular in the 1930s and 1940s, the Buick Century took things a bit too far. Its bulky and heavy frame made the car feel cumbersome on the road, especially when trying to maneuver through tighter spaces or at higher speeds. The car's weight significantly hampered its handling, making it feel more like a sluggish cruiser than a nimble, high-performance vehicle. For drivers who were hoping for a car that lived up to its name, evoking speed and agility, the Century was a letdown. The Century's large body also contributed to its poor fuel economy, a problem that plagued the car throughout its lifespan. In an era when gasoline was cheaper and cars were generally less efficient, even by those standards, the Century was seen as a fuel guzzler. Its engine, though powerful on paper, was inefficient when combined with the car's weight. The car consumed an excessive amount of fuel just to get its large frame moving, which was a serious drawback for drivers who were expecting both performance and practicality. For many buyers, the cost of running the Century became a burden, as it burned through gas at a much faster rate than many of its competitors. In terms of performance, while the Century did feature a V8 engine that was capable of producing decent power for the time, it wasn't able to translate that power into actual road performance due to its size and inefficiency. The car was promoted as a high-performance model, but it simply wasn't able to match the speed or excitement that other cars in its class could offer. The excessive weight meant that acceleration was sluggish, and despite Buick's efforts to position the Century as a thrilling car to drive, it often felt slow and underwhelming. The styling of the 1940 Buick Century didn't help matters either. While it had the streamlined Art Deco-inspired curves typical of the era, the design seemed to emphasize its bulk rather than mask it. The long, heavy body appeared more suited for cruising than for speed, which ran counter to the car's supposed high-performance image. For a car that was marketed as sporty and exciting, the Century looked every bit the opposite. A large, unwieldy sedan that felt more like a luxury boat than a nimble road machine. Furthermore, the car's suspension and handling weren't suited for the kind of driving experience buyers were expecting. Instead of delivering a smooth, responsive ride, the Century often felt clumsy, especially on turns or uneven roads. This made it a less than ideal choice for drivers looking for a performance vehicle, as it didn't inspire confidence on the road. The steering was heavy, and the car's weight made it difficult to handle in situations where precision was needed. For a car that was supposed to be quick and agile, this lack of control was a major disappointment. In hindsight, the 1940 Buick Century struggled because it was a car that tried to be both a luxury cruiser and a high-performance machine, but ended up excelling at neither. Its oversized body, poor fuel economy, and underwhelming performance made it a car that failed to live up to its potential. Buick had hoped to create something exciting, a car that would attract drivers who wanted both speed and style. But what they got instead was a car that was too large, too inefficient, and ultimately too impractical for those looking for either luxury or performance. The Century was a reminder of the challenges automakers faced in balancing power with practicality, especially in a time when larger cars were still in vogue. Buick had the right idea in trying to deliver a high-performance vehicle, but the execution simply didn't match the vision. As a result, the 1940 Buick Century is often remembered as a car that promised much but delivered little, a symbol of what happens when a car's size and inefficiency get in the way of its true potential. These 15 worst and silliest American cars from the 1940s showcase how even during a time of great innovation, some cars just didn't hit the mark. From awkward designs to bad marketing decisions, these cars stand as a reminder that not every idea is a good one in the automotive world.